All right, thank you for staying with us. Just before we get into the aviation conversation, Festus Akimboewa says FG should have stuck to the original Appropriation Act and borrowed to finance in order to support businesses and keep people in work. Although higher annual borrowing could cause a rise in the cost of borrowing and leave Nigeria vulnerable. And Ipomosa says we should also stimulate investments to support the construction sector. This sector is currently near closure.
Like many other sectors.
Finally, Okuntade says, what is happening to Ondo State huge bitumen deposit?
Question mark. Yes, now let's look at flight operations during COVID. Nigeria resumed domestic flights on Wednesday, 8th of July, after a hiatus of around 3 months, as the government relaxed restrictions aimed at curbing the spread of the new coronavirus. The airports for the capital, Abuja, and the commercial hub, Lagos, reopened for flights on that day, and some others have followed suit. No date has been decided yet for the resumption of international flights, but the picture of the first flight's cabin has left many wondering if indeed we are ready to open our skies without spreading the virus. Now, we have two experts in the studio with us this morning to look at this and to tell us how safe it is for us to be flying during the pandemic. It's my pleasure to welcome the immediate past president of the National Association of Nigeria Travel Agencies, Mr. Bankole Bernard. Good morning. And we also have Mr. Tayo Ojuri with us, who's an aviation expert.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much for being with us. I am a bit fazed because of all the protocols that were read to us by the presidential committee, and we actually saw demonstrations of all that, and to hear that we are still at risk. I mean, some of us are taken aback by that kind of conclusion. You, sir, are of the Association of Travel Agencies. What are your thoughts about those protocols, and what are the reasons why they don't seem to be effective? Well, why some people do not think that they will be effective?
Well, good morning, viewers. I think the government just needs to do a bit more of awareness and alleviate the fears that people have. I've had the opportunity to experience the protocol that has been put in place, and I think it's sound, and I think it's of international standard. Mind you, Nigeria is not working in isolation. We're working with reputable bodies in guiding us in getting all these things done. You know, I mean, to let you know, our airport is the member of ACI. You know, Airports Council International. So which means that there are certain protocols laid down, policies that we have followed. And we have done all that. So where's the fear coming from? Yeah, you must agree with me that there will always be a human factor because it is Nigeria, or we're known not wanting to do things right. I mean, but we must learn to give benefit of doubt and, you know, just learn to follow the processes that they've laid on ground. Everywhere at the airport has been marked. The question now is the attitude of the people.
Mr. Bernard, this is Nigeria.
Yes, please.
Do you know who I am?
Well,
in quotes, that is there. And those the minister spoke about in the course of this week were, do you know who I am's? Big men.
We actually raised that, and this is unacceptable anywhere in the world.
But they will follow those protocols abroad.
But they don't do that outside the country. So why must it be done here? Is it because we're in Nigeria? I think we've gotten to a point where it must not be free for all. I mean, if you're a VIP, respect the law of the land. It doesn't make you above the law. There are processes, and we must learn to follow those protocols. That's just the way it is. Why must you show off at the airport, really, that I'm the ex-governor and so? I mean, it doesn't show maturity as far as I'm concerned. I think that's what
You
we
know,
need to
you
really
know,
address this time
I understand
around.
he's come out, the ex-governor has come up to say he's not, that's not true, that he's a law-abiding citizen of this country, and I'm sure one of these days we'll get him to come and tell us what exactly happened at the airport. But meanwhile, FAN, that's the Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria, was invited to this conversation today, but no official was available. So in the course of the week, and we'll bring them in later, as well as officials of private airlines, we hope to get them to come in and also tell us what their plans are and what's happening and all of this. Because the question of the airport, the cabins being practically empty, cancelled flights, and all of that comes into play, especially as it regards cost. Because the reason why a lot of people didn't get to the airport is the cost. The fares have gone up.
Yes, the fares have gone up, but how much of up, what difference it is? And I have to actually be realistic where the rubber meets the road. I was brave, one of the brave ones that went on the first flight on July 8th. And talking about the processes, like, just to reiterate what Bankole said, was actually put in place, that process from the drop-off to the dissentation of your bags and the check-in process. It was in compliance and adherence to COVID-19 protocols. Now,
Worldwide.
yes, worldwide. We're not in isolation.
Yeah.
We're working in tangent with WHO and ICAO standards, and it was complied with. The concerns that were raised, however, was what the passengers said. We were social distancing on ground, where you had this space, but when we got on the aircraft, we had to sit with 3 in a row, which is the normal sitting process.
Ouch.
That's where the cost perspective comes from. Yes, the reality on ground is, yes, we actually have been, we've actually have HAPA electrostatic cleaning for the aircraft. We have the HAPA purified air filter. You have the sanitations of the public places. All that has been put in place. And the crew, flight crew as well, have the PPs on to actually reduce the rate of contamination. All that put in place, there is a cost to the operations.
Yeah.
There are lots of underlying costs to the operations of domestic and even international airline. We've heard that before. Airline business is highly capital intensive, is highly volatile, once there's a shock to the economy, we actually are the first to catch cold. We were the first to catch cold when the sneeze came from COVID-19, and now we've actually not gotten out of the cold. So starting out on the domestic, yes, there was a bit of increase. To answer your question about the increase. Yes, but what was it prior to this time? We've simulated those numbers. Prior to this time, it was between 26,000 to 28,000. And it depends on when you buy.
Exactly.
When you buy is a huge factor to how the price of your ticket, what the price of the ticket is. So that being said, the time for takeoff, the opening of the airlines, and the time the government, I'm talking about time government gave the takeoff, and the time the airlines started selling was an ample time to market those tickets. So once you have ample time to market, you actually have a cheaper
fares.
Cheaper
when you
fare.
buy early.
You buy early, you have the opportunity to gain.
Yeah.
So that's where people are saying about the price. And 10 days is not enough time scientifically to do an objective research and assessment of how the business has done. Yes, the truth is that, and it's been said even prior to opening, that we are going to have a very reduced passenger traffic. Because yes, we can uncouple COVID-19 from the economy. Economy is a driver of aviation. Aviation sector is a major factor that indicates the leading or the lagging part of the economy. Once the economy is buoyant, aviation is buoyant. Exactly. People will travel. Yeah. It's a function of disposable income. So we see the VP said on Tuesday that we actually lost 40% of our revenue. With 40% gone of our revenue, it affects people traveling.
Okay. Mr. Ojuri, approximately how much will an economy seat cost now from here to Abuja?
What I had to pay was 33,000 naira for a return fare. So it was 66,000 naira and change.
Let me
Okay,
comment
if you
there.
consider that because they cannot carry a full load, they
Yes.
can only carry what, 60%?
No, you're still open. That's I did emphasize that you're still sitting three.
Yeah,
Yes.
but
it's up to the airline.
we heard about some who didn't.
Yes,
Some airlines did not carry full load and
That's
they
correct.
adhered to the social distancing also in the flight.
Yes.
So if they're forced to carry fewer passengers,
Yes.
it therefore follows that they have to increase the fare of those who are willing to fly.
naturally, but there's a limit to which you can increase your fare.
Who is limiting that?
It's a function of demand and supply. Once you cannot fly from Lagos to Abuja. You cannot, no matter how much the cost of your operations, you cannot actually price it at about 120, right? For example, hypothetically, at 120.
Because nobody is going to buy that
Nobody is
ticket.
going to buy. So it's being realistic and it's a function of the science. There's a science to the ticket price. It's a yield factor, and that's maybe where Bamkule will come in because he's on the downstream sector of where the tickets are sold. So whether price is fixed and how it's fixed is a function of lots of things. The time of the day, the season,
day of the week.
It's a function of that. So it's even if you actually skip your middle seat, there's still a price to which you can.
You cannot go
You
above.
cannot go over, and there's still a price which you can sell your tickets.
Okay, Bankole.
There are certain things we need to understand here because I followed all through while we're working towards this restart. And the government didn't give any directive on social distancing in the aircraft. So we must understand that.
Okay.
And there is no need for social distancing on the aircraft. It's a commercial decision. So if an airline, based on the number of passengers to fly out at that particular point in time, they're very few, then you can social distance them.
Yeah.
There's no big deal in that because anyway, why pack all of them together in one place when there's so much space? So there's no big deal. But if you have a full flight, everybody should sit accordingly and let the flight be full and let the airline operate effectively.
Bankole,
They're all wearing their
let
masks,
me
aren't they?
ask you this question.
Yeah, they wear their mask at that particular point
Let
in
me
time.
ask this question. I mean, some would wonder if I'm walking on the road. I mean,
Yes.
I'm outside my house and I'm told I must wear a mask
Exactly.
and still social distance. How would you say that there is no need for social distancing in the aircraft?
And I will explain this to you, and that's part of the reason why I said we just need the government to do more of awareness so that people understand how this thing works.
Okay.
Because in the aircraft, at that level, the aircraft has been disinfected. Not only has it been disinfected, the air there is purified. It's purified. So it's not like when you're on the streets. You know, it's carbon air. So we need to understand that. But an average man on the street...
So, you know what? Can you take us through the process? The flight comes in before
Yes.
it's boarded.
Yes.
What's done to purify the air? And remember, the doors are open for people to get in, so air is moving in and out. So please educate us and educate the people out there. What are those things that are being done, or what's going on to ensure that the air stays purified until we go airborne and then land?
Okay, this is it. While the aircraft is on ground, the normal thing is they come in and clean up the aircraft, disinfect the aircraft to the best way they could. Now, once you've done that, just the way you go to an office and you use your hand sanitizer, do you carry the sanitizer all through while you're in the office? Of course you don't. Once you've done that, you believe that you've done the appropriate thing before going in and make sure that you stay as clean as possible so that you don't have to, because this thing, we all need to understand it very well. And the moment that has been done, remember that the passengers too have been they've gone through some protocols and purifying process where they sanitize their hands, make sure that everything is clean before
Sanitize
going into
the
the aircraft.
baggage.
So once you get into the aircraft, you are to sit on the seats allocated to you, with minimal contact with the cabin crew. You sit down. It's a short flight. They're not serving food. They're not serving anything. So everybody walks out normally just the way, because by the time the aircraft gets into the air, the air has been purified. So there's no virus that can survive under that climate, which they made clear to us. Or maybe the government now needs to put it in different Nigerian languages and let people understand that, look, you are safe flying in the air and you
That
don't
would
have
help.
to.
You wanted to say
That would
something?
help.
Yes, where the rubber meets the road, and this is without being too scientific, it's electromagnetic distillation, because the aircraft, like we know, cannot just be fumigated with
Yes.
any type of, so it's electromagnetic when it's on ground. And then when it comes up, the upper air purifying system actually is the same air quality which you have in the hospitals and actually in theaters and surgeries.
Yes,
The
the
same
ICU.
quality of air.
Okay.
So you have that, and once it goes up, there is the change of air. Once you are depending on the altitude, there's the change of air. Lastly, the way sitting arrangement within the aircraft helps us a lot. The air comes from the top, where it's all seated facing forward, and the way the air circulates actually does not ensure that there's distancing, and the way people would say, yeah, it's the same air, but obviously the same air that goes down from up down and goes out and gets recycled. So that there's a science to it, which we won't get into the nitty-gritty of that now, but it's to ensure, educate, and give people the comfort that it's safe to fly.
Okay. All right, we'll take a moment and we'll come back to continue this conversation around aviation safety and how to make it easier within the pandemic. We'll be back with that. Just stay with us. Thank you very much. We're still having this conversation around the airport. Yes, we had some very somewhat technical conversation before that break. Talked about the air is purified steady. You don't need to panic. You don't need to fear, because the process of air coming in and going out is such that there is no mix. Sounds high up there, but it's simple. But there's this question for you, Nigerian youth. Sir Attenborough says, do you purify the air coming out of the lungs if passengers while in the air?
Because the air coming out is purified, and what you breathe in is not
the
same.
purified
So
air.
it's been purified. It's just very simple.
I think another side to this coin is the fact we should realize that life itself is a risk, and how much of that risk has been mitigated. I think that's the other side conversation we should be having. We've simulated that process. We actually, and part of that simulation is it started on the 8th. Not all airports actually opened on the 8th. It was staggered until all the airports actually, after inspection, now opened on the 15th. So it's to ensure that the process is actually being addressed. And then when there are gaps, those gaps are actually addressed. And over and beyond that, it's a dynamic process. Once we address or we see that there's a challenge in the system, we're able to address it.
But staying with you,
Yes.
Chukwude Onwesikobi, I hope I got that well, is concerned that this is more like a commercial decision without consideration of the health implications. He's saying, hold on, he's about this air purification thing, hold on. He's concerned that, okay, there are people that are asymptomatic. So they come into that flight, you don't know anything, and they're there with you. They might pass it on to this person who is. So how would that work in that kind of confined space? The HEPA purification system, you might need to explain that a little bit, and then let's understand how all of this would tie in.
If someone is asymptomatic, and we're actually talking about domestic here.
Yeah,
because
we're domestic flights, yeah.
On the international, you have lots of people, you have to test before you fly. But in domestic, you don't have to test before you fly. So first, let me indicate this. The port health system is not just a decision by the airlines, not just a commercial decision. The port health, the regulators, World Health Organization, NCDC, and PTF, we're all involved in this process. It's not just a light bulb experience, job hop one day. So that process was simulated, like I said, and then with the HAPA system, is the purified system. It's just like your air filter in your car for the air conditioning. You change it once you go to services so that the air, it doesn't pick up the dust. So that's how much I can explain. I'm not a doctor, neither am I an engineer. But what I know of the flight operations and airport operations, that process has been simulated. It's been tried and tested, and whereby someone is asymptomatic, is on board, the mask would prevent that to a great extent. And people they're not serving food, so there's mitigating that risk as well. And as well, actually when you board in batches, and when you disembark as well, you disembark in batches. There's lots of social distance. So the risk of you contacting or sitting close or catching that virus, it's actually reduced and mitigated.
Okay.
What we've ensured, just the last line, what we've ensured is we don't want aviation to be a vector to the passing of COVID-19.
But when you are in the aircraft and you're sitting 3 in a row, which is normal, you cannot but have contact with the person sitting next to you.
Yes, but it doesn't come through that.
Exactly.
People still elbow shake.
Yes.
That's not the form of transmission. Let's be realistic.
You said contact. I'm just
When
talking.
you
There
talk,
is physical
We're talking
contact.
about talk. You will remember you have your
have the
face
mask.
mask. Do you understand? So you limit everything you have to do
Through a short flight.
Through a short flight.
Okay, Nigerian youth is still talking here. He says the HEPA filters on in a plane extract and recycle air, removing 99.9% of impurities and viruses every minute. It says, but that's on international flights. The question is, do domestic airlines use the same?
International aircraft and domestic
They are
airlines are the same.
These are aircraft
The aircraft,
that
it
everywhere
doesn't-
So it's inbuilt.
Yes, it's inbuilt.
Okay, the question of the fares, you know, those who are concerned that the fares have gone up and all of that. So how does that work, you being an agent?
Well, from what we have seen, the fares have not gone up. The fares are still the same. The only thing that has changed is the rate of exchange, because I mean, dollar has been devalued, to an extent. And remember, everything in aviation is dollar denominated.
Yes.
So we must understand that. But to a common man is saying that, oh, I'm paying a little bit more. The only reason you're paying a little bit more is that
You're paying more for the dollar.
for the dollar. That's just what has happened. Because if you actually see an increase in the airfare, what you're actually paying is not what you should be paying. That's just the honest truth. And the airlines, remember, they survive on 2 major factors, either yield or volume. So they need the volume to be there for them to make money, especially on the short-haul flights. It's driven by the volume.
Yeah,
So
but
we
Mr.
need
Bernard,
more people.
the volume is not there right now, resulting in some flights being cancelled. We know of a lot of flights which were cancelled in the course of the week for lack of.
On Thursday, on Wednesday, flights to Kaduna were cancelled. Flights to Maiduguri Airport were also cancelled.
Yes, when you look at those routes, I don't want us to attach sentiments because we're experiencing COVID-19 now. Let us not attach sentiments. Naturally, every day, commercial decision flights are being cancelled for one reason or the other. Flights are being cancelled every day. And when you look at this route that you're talking about Kaduna, Maiduguri, if they cannot have enough passengers to go on that flight, they might probably cancel that flight due to commercial decision, because the cost to operate that flight, they have to be able to mitigate it. And that is the truth. But if you see Lagos, even Lagos, Abuja, Lagos, Port Harcourt, at times are being cancelled when you go to the airport in the afternoon. They will cancel it and merge it with the one that will go in the evening because they could see that the numbers are low. Or I'm yet to see an airline cancel the very first flight for the day.
The other side of it, how much of communication exists between the airlines and their passengers?
Oh, trust me, quite a lot. SMS, through the travel agents, quite a lot. But you see, the question now is, are the passengers paying attention to this like they should? If they do, they will be notified. And that's the professional thing to do.
So, Jerry?
The truth and the reality of this, this is evidence-based science, statistics to show for it. IATA numbers, Boeing and Airbus have said, once we even start up, the numbers are not going to be pre-COVID-19 numbers.
Yeah.
So cancellation, passenger throughput, passenger traffic numbers is what we see, and it's the reality on ground. This is still further going to actually reduce. From what we saw starting on July 8th, we saw a spike, which was due to those that were stuck at home or separated from family prior to this time. And now they had finished what they need to do. Moving forward, we still have business lots. We did a simulation or review of 15 companies on the Nigerian Stock Exchange and all the multinational companies in Nigeria. There's still restriction on travel for their staff.
In fact, many of them have not fully gone back to work.
So
They're
if
still
there's
working from
restriction
home.
on travel, that's where the passengers come from. Another like where the passengers come from is government. Government actually, business in Abuja, government offices are not fully open. PTF said it can only have meetings for 4 people in a meeting. So that driver is not there. Schools are not open. The boarding school students have to travel sometimes. So that's part of our driver as well. So all this international airports are not open. 30% of our domestic passengers come from international feeder flights.
Yeah.
So all that put in place is where our passenger numbers, which is 8 million annually, and has been revolving around that. That's where it comes from. And once those other underlying factors are not actually fully optimized, it's going to affect passenger numbers. And that's the reality. We're going to see that decrease in third quarter, and probably once we get a vaccine, this is a game changer.
Yes.
Okay.
Once we get a vaccine, credible and validated vaccine, by end of third quarter, that would change the dynamics for us.
Okay.
We're
Mr.
looking forward to that.
Bernard, so how does your business survive in all of this? I mean, as travel agents, ticketing, protocol and all of that is down the drain.
You've asked
Your staff and all of that. So what's been going
You've
on?
asked $1 million question.
Okay, so give me the money.
We've all been working in anticipation of when business will peak. We've been at this since March, end of March, where we all had to go home. We had to close our offices and start working from home. So we've been working from home, hoping that April has gone, May has surfaced, nothing changed. June came, nothing changed. A bit of hope appeared in July by reopening the domain. So we're just living with that hope that things are just going to get better, because this is all we've been doing. I mean, I've been at this in the last 14 years. There's nothing else I know how to do other than get you on board to fly. So I'm more like just going to be appealing, to, and I understand the stand of the government without fear, because everywhere around the world, nobody is so quick at opening their airports. They want to make sure that, aviation is not responsible for transmitting this COVID-19.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be disastrous for any government to see aviation. And that's why we've seen all these international bodies put protocols in place that, look, if you can follow this protocol and ensure that this is done properly, then we will minimize the risk of this COVID-19 on the people. And that's the truth. We've had a couple of evacuation flights, if you look at it, and we've had them coming back with about 300 passengers, 250-something passengers, and what have you like that. So the question now is, if we've been able to test through the evacuation flights, it means to a very large extent we've been able to put certain things in place. I mean, they are tested for COVID-19. If you're positive, you're not going to embark on that flight. So if you've been tested and you're free to fly, then you'll come here and we'll put all the normal protocols in place. Then I think we're good. Okay. I think we want to go back to business.
Let's look at the industry holistically now. Aviation is only a small part of the hospitality. The other parts of it are still in lockdown. The hotels are not open. Which hotels are open?
I know
Hotels are
some
open.
hotels in Lagos State that once you actually Lagos State and actually Abuja that was. Yes, I can. The hotels once you pass the Lagos State
Exactly.
process and protocol for reopening the safety processes, you're allowed to open.
Yes.
But
Yes.
you get to the
It's just that restaurants are not open
Restaurants
for,
are not. For,
so that people don't gather
so
because
there's no sit-in.
Yes, you
Yeah.
can't sit in. They cannot guarantee the safety yet because we're talking about cutleries being used and all. So what's going to happen to all that? You know, so they don't feel comfortable until they're able to, you know, get beyond that hurdle. But right now, sorry, yes, hotels are open and they do a lot of takeaway. So they can do a la carte for you.
Okay.
I mean, make your food and you eat in your but restaurants are now open, but hotels are
okay,
open.
now this
for
is in the area of
services.
speculation, but I'm sure you all are doing your projections already.
Yeah.
How soon do you think that this industry will pick up again? Because as far as I'm concerned, right now it's on life support.
Yes. Well, all things being equal, and this has been optimistic, you know, I mean, I'm allowed to. This is being optimistic. We're looking at, as soon as the international flight kicks off, you know, we start, you know, Nigeria is an import-dependent country, and a lot of traders, I mean, go to and fro on a regular basis, which translates to economy, and you see people doing business. We see the airlines coming back to full-fledged business, translate to the hoteliers having regular guests at their hotels. Because, I mean, if I go to Abuja now, I can't have a house in Abuja, then have a house in Port Harcourt and any other place I have. So which means I have to use those facilities. So as long as I'm able to ferry myself to those places, I will have to use it. And so applied to a lot of passengers as well. So all things being equal, we're looking at end of August. We're being hopeful. We're being hopeful.
Isn't that being overly optimistic?
that is
Well,
you
End
just
of,
read my mind.
I thought you were going to say end of the year.
I can't say end of the year. I'll be
Looking for
shooting
money.
myself in the leg.
Well, we've been realistic, and this is numbers to buttress us. I'm looking at second quarter of 2021.
Oh my God.
So why do I say that? We're not independent of the economy. Aviation, yeah, there'll be people that are traveling, but let's see where the rubber meets the road. Even if I'm traveling, you go and buy, where's the disposable income for most Nigerians that are buying? Manufacturing is down. The evacuation flights, I was able to actually monitor some of them. Most of the Indian that were evacuated because some of the companies shut
paid.
down. So for them to pick up, those other parts need to start actually running on 6 engines before aviation actually picks up, in my opinion. And this is data to buttress it. We're not just an independent. Aviation is driven by lots of things. Government has actually reduced budget.
That is expected. And remember, the budget has to do with the entire economy.
Yes.
But you see, if you've studied the trend very well, you've seen that we've had a couple of evacuation flights.
Yes.
Both in and out. As a matter of fact, it has come to stay on the regular basis, almost every 1-2 flights every week now.
Yes.
You know, so if we can have that, honestly, in my opinion, I'm not saying we should rush into opening the international flights, but when we monitor things, just the same way we did with the local flights, that we've been able to put all the necessary protocols in place. Once we've been able to put all the necessary protocols in place, and we have the port health officials doing dotting the I's and crossing the T's, we can actually open up international flights.
And I agree with you on that. But
because a lot depends on us. Look, I can say tomorrow if how I really want it to be. But guess what? I can't say tomorrow because
Wishful thinking.
Yes.
Yeah, it becomes a wishful thinking. But the most important thing is the fact that we need to get back to work. We need to get people engaged. Quite a lot of people are sitting idle, doing nothing.
And to
is
corroborate
killing them.
that, Smart Flight says, travel agencies are suffering, believe me. Our president has said it all. We need palliatives, he says.
Okay, we have to go, but let me just read this and then you give your closing statement. Nigerian youth again, this is about the filters. He says, and this to encourage the viewers and those who are willing to travel, says, according to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, HEPA filters capture 99.9% of particulate matter from the air, including fungi, bacteria, and viruses from 0.1 to 0.3 micrometers in diameter. So as tiny as they are, the HEPA filters capture all of them. So just to
99.9.
encourage you to say, okay, relax. Just do the normal protocol and you're fine. I see you.
You are saying-
I see you.
I'm flying.
Please,
Because we need them to
passengers-
fly.
We need them to
We
really
need passengers to fly.
In other
Because
words,
if they
it is
don't-
quite safe.
Yes, it's quite safe.
Yes.
You need to echo that well.
Okay, then. So, in closing, Mr. Bernard,
Yes.
your final word.
Well, let me say this to our viewers. The aviation industry is right now is almost in comatose because the real users of most of the things in aviation are the passengers, which is always at the forefront. Which means that if the passengers are not flying, then every other thing in the industry will be at a stop. The ground handlers won't have any luggage to handle. The air traffic borders will have nothing because there are no flights. So we need to get, passengers need to come back and use,
fly.
because it saves time
Okay.
and it's
Mr.
safe.
Jury.
I think what COVID-19 has taught us, there's going to be, we've heard it so many times, there's now a new normal. So what will be a new normal for post-COVID-19 when the international flights happen is digitalization of that process, self-checking processes, as well as automation of that processes that will make it seamless and will reduce the contact.
Contact.
Let me just read this tweet before, so that those who are listening, the authorities and all, can also explain this clearly. Onyeso Ogochukwu, who is a senior physiotherapist and health sciences researcher, says COVID-19 is transmitted through aerosolization of tiny droplets from patients' nasogastrics. Okay. So far, they can breathe, talk, laugh, sneeze, etc. There's nothing like air purification. Aircraft is just a vacuum pumped and fresh air recycled. That is not safe science-wise. So we need clarification, PTF and the aviation industry guys. Please clarify, clarify, clarify. But please, and all of that, wear your face mask.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bankole Bernard. He's immediate past president, National Association of Nigeria Travel Agencies. And Mr. Atayo Ojuru is an aviation expert. Thank you both very much for
It's a
coming
pleasure
to
to be here.
shed more light on this for us and probably give our people more confidence. And remember that we also invited FAN, but no official was available to come to this program. But we hope to get them at some point, and we also hope to get the other, little pieces of this particular puzzle to come and talk to us in due course. Thank you very much for coming, gentlemen, and Sunrise will be right back with another interesting conversation in just a moment. We'll be looking at Third Mainland Bridge.
Thank you very much.